All right, so we're back again. This is David. I'm joined again this week with Nick and Mike, and we're going to talk about what if the pandemic lasts all year. Better bet is up to 18 months. So Nick and I kind of had a format we wanted to follow. One of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to show information to everybody about what to do if you're feeling despondent, destitute, suicidal, any of those things. So we're going to flash that a couple of times during this episode. We're going to start off with it right now as I share my screen. So
we know that these are hard times for people, and so we want to make sure that people know that there is help out there. David and I have always talked about it. If you need, reach out to us. We're always in ear, via Facebook or YouTube, and we can get with you guys. Otherwise, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is on there. You can text a number, and you can get help in any way. We know that the times are tough, and sometimes, when times get these bad, people losing jobs and houses and everything. We just want to make sure you guys have the information.
Yeah, and we will definitely share that a few more times. We want to make sure everybody has access to help when they need it. Obviously, most states are still shut down to some extent. People are still out of work. A lot of people are getting unemployment. One of the things we wanted to do was take kind of a little poll of people we know to see what exactly their situation looks like. So I threw this out to some people a couple days ago, and we had 31 different respondents. So kind of what we're looking at here is out of those 31, 21, either their income stayed the same or it increased during the pandemic here. And then we have 10 people where it decreased between 25 or even over 50%. I know with Mike, his income has stayed the same. I know my income has decreased over 50%. So, we kind of run the gamut here. I think it's safe to say Nick's income has not increased.
No, I'm in that lower. Mine has decreased 50%. So, but we're working on it. So.
Well, that's the big thing is we're always working on this stuff. So, Nick and I talked a little bit ago, and basically we wanted to put this out there. The stuff we talk about, the stuff we do, that works for us. I mean, Mike had a great point at the end of the last episode we did, which was on debt consolidation and dealing with collections, that after his divorce, him and I sat down and we looked at everything, and I said, these are the things I would suggest. And some of those things he did, some of those things he didn't. He kind of made it his own. And that's really what you have to do. We're going to give you a lot of information. We hope that, something here sticks and you can make that work for you, and great if you can. And if you do things differently, please share it with us, because we'd like to know. We want to learn what you're doing that is successful, because we'd like to be more successful than, what we are with money right now. Obviously, none of the three of us that are on this call this week are independently wealthy or retired or anything like that. We're just moving on in the world like everybody else. So these are the things that work for us, and hopefully some of them will work for you. And maybe you got an idea that'll help make us even richer, than what we thought we would be. Who knows?
Sure. We might as well start today's non-official sponsor for me is Odd Side Ales out in Grand Haven, Michigan, a rye hipster brunch stout. So thanks to them for letting me buy this and support that. So David, I know you're drinking something fun.
I am drinking 2 Michigan beers in one here. I have vanilla Java Porter again, like I had last couple weeks from Atwater Brewing out of Detroit. And then I have Rubeus, which is a raspberry flavored beer out of Founders in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'm supporting 2 2 Michigan breweries here today. Mike?
I am failing supporting Michigan, but I am supporting a small brewery down in Texas called Shiner, which I bought a s'more, which is a chocolate and raspberry or chocolate and marshmallow ale, which is interesting this time of year. You know, I like to do campfires and stuff like that. So figure a s'more beer was good for this time of year.
Yeah. All right, David. Let's talk about our worst case scenario, what we're looking at.
So
what's coming up here.
I think one of the big things we need to keep in mind with this COVID-19 is we need to look at facts over fear, because there's a lot of fear out there. One of the things when you're watching news organizations is to differentiate between the two. So, you know, there's news that they show on CNN, and then there's pundits that they show on CNN that are literally just talking heads looking for viewers, and they don't really care what they say. You get that on MSNBC, you get it on Fox News. I know when I'm looking for news, I tend to go to, I'm lucky. I have a friend in the news business. I watch his newscast. I watch Channel 13 News. I got a friend there. He does the newscast every night, and I trust what he says because I know him. It's a personal relationship. And usually if somebody's saying it that you personally know, you can take that to the bank because they're not going to lie to you. So we always value facts. And kind of what I did prepping for this week was I started looking into a lot of different things. I ran some ideas past Nick. Him and I have gone over this, quite a bit in the last couple hours. So we're looking at the timeline for the pandemic. It could be over in as soon as 4 months. I highly doubt that. It could go up to the next 18 months, which hopefully it does not take that long. How do we survive this? Because you have to realize that even though, 21 out of 31 people said their income has either stayed the same or grown, if that's due to getting more money through unemployment or being an essential worker, that could go away. Companies are going to feel the pinch. The government's going to feel the pinch the longer this goes on, and there may not be rescue funds for everybody out there. So taking steps now to protect the future is really what you need to be doing with your money. So one of the biggest things, and I've heard this from several of the people that I know and trust business-wise, is you need to learn how to adjust and pivot during this time. So you can't go on with business as usual. So with me, business as usual for the last at least year, because my wife opened a business a year ago, has been I work 3 jobs. I get paid for one of them. But because one of them's at my wife's business and she takes a salary, technically, we're drawing money from both of these jobs. She's not making money there right now. So we had to learn to adjust to what this new normal has become, at least for the time being here. Okay, and kind of pivot. And what we did was we looked at all our bills. We made some cuts here. We made some cuts there. We talked about that in previous episodes, of budgeting during the pandemic and budgeting in general. And we kind of went over those things. I know, Nick, you've had to make some pivots and adjustments as well, because they're changing for you on a daily basis, really.
Oh yeah, and and that's the thing. I'm not going to the same job. I'm not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to my job. I'm not punching out at 1 and then doing work, right? I'm doing work. Finding odd jobs is kind of my thing now to get by. So, we used to go out to eat quite a bit. We talked about that, and now we're on this whole home front and budgeting, planning meals. It kind of reminds me of back when I first started a little bit. With this is we're eating hot dogs more. We're not we're eating ramen noodles again. It's just so our meals are getting less expensive, and so it's when the income comes in, we're making sure that the right bills are getting paid and the income's going to the right spots before we're doing the things that we used to do. So.
Well, Nick cut out a little bit there at the beginning, but one of the things I saw last week when him and I were talking was he put a post out on Facebook and said, "Hey, does anybody have some odd jobs that they need done? I'm looking to make some extra money." And he's been pretty busy ever since he put that out there, because people are like, "I'll pay, $20 to do this. I'll pay you, $15 to do that." So he told me earlier today, he's been busier than he was when he was working, because everybody has these jobs they don't want to do.
Yeah. And there's things that they can't do. I'm fortunate that I have a work truck to kind of go grab some stuff, and people need solved. So I'm at one of my fun things I thought was going to be a hobby for myself. I bought a lock, so I could change locks and master locks. So I bought a lock pinning kit, and I actually just changed the entire house worth of locks just the other day. It's really cool. I'm finding odd jobs, and it's just things that people can't do or don't want to do, and it's from the people who on this list, they either got more income now, or their income hasn't changed, right? So it's been a great blessing for me in that.
So one of the things you have to learn how to do is bring in some extra money, like what Nick has done. So question I'm going to ask is, can you make money when everything's normal? Extra money when everything is normal? And of course, we've talked about this in previous episodes of, these are different ways to come and make money. My wife today went and rototilled a lady's garden, paid her $100 to do it, probably took her an hour. That's a great return on investment. I know Nick has picked up brush for several people, got paid $30 to $40 to do it. That's a great return on investment, because, it's not a big deal to him. And that leads us into, can you also make money when things get to the absolute worst, which, is the situation we're in now? So can you sit there when we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are laid off, and can you still make money like what you were before? So you have to find ways to do that. And some of it's just by learning new skills. So, we've been doing this. This is, I think, our 7th time together. And Nick and I are not making any money off of this. We're just sharing things because we like to. But, I would hope in the future we get better with YouTube and we learn more of that, and we get better with Zoom, which, I've been using Zoom for 2 months now. I'm getting pretty good with that.
Yeah.
These are skills to learn and to get better at, and you can help make yourself money later because you're better at newer technology that not everybody has the ability to do yet.
Yeah, and I say there's so many things, like, right, I brought up the learning how to rekey a house. It's something I learned off of YouTube. I know that there's still older people out there that don't know how to set up a TV, right? You can go set up smart TVs. One thing I want to share with a lot of people is, don't let your pride get in the way. There's when we were kids, we were always told to go out and mow grass, and then the 1% of those kids that did that, they turned it into a landscape company. But if you go out and looking for work, people are looking to hire, right? If you don't know how to do something, right, there's somebody out there that can teach you how to do it. There's Facebook there's Facebook groups to teach things. Like I'm in a woodworking thing, and you know, my neighbor sells benches, right? And he's selling so many of them. You know, but it's a matter of learning. It's a matter of learning a new skill, right? Whether it's to use a saw or put a project together. So there's definitely ways to make money right now. And sometimes you guys have the skill set already. Sometimes you have to learn new ones. Don't be afraid to learn, right? And sometimes you're going to fail, but you know, failure is a great way to learn.
I would honestly say Nick and I both had this experience because we both coached and we've coached together. Failure is probably the best teacher there is. The more times you fail, the more you learn to succeed. And that's one of the things that is, as long as you're paying attention and you're trying to learn and get better, you're going to. So I remember back in 2016, my wife had a stroke, and we had bought a new TV. It was fairly expensive, and we had it for maybe 13 months. And you know, nowadays TV warranties, they are for a year, and once you're out of that year, go buy a new TV. Now, I have some skills. I know how to work on computers. I always have. So I hopped online and I looked for new circuit boards for the TV, and I ordered them, and I ripped the TV apart, and I threw new circuit boards in, and I fixed the TV because I have a skill. It cost me $60. The TV itself was $800. There are things you can learn to do. I didn't know how to fix it. I had some ideas. I watched a couple YouTube videos, like Nick said. I got a fixed TV for $60. You can't necessarily do those things anymore. We were talking before, we started recording, and Mike's refrigerator went out. He could have had somebody come and fix it. It was going to take him a week to come out. It's probably going to cost $200-300. At that point, it might be worth just going and getting a new refrigerator, which is what he ended up doing. You have to weigh your investment of time versus your investment of money. That's always a factor in anything you're doing. But if you can teach yourself how to fix things, which I know Nick has been great at because he has all these rental units, you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm saying there's things that I try and I shouldn't. No, I shouldn't say shouldn't. I try, I can't fix it. And it takes my time right there, and I've lost money, so then I end up hiring somebody. But, that one time that it's happened to me, I learned a lot doing it. Now I know exactly what to look for, and my time to go diagnose a problem is going to be, I can just get on the phone and call somebody compared to trying to fix it myself. So.
Well, going back to Nick's Facebook post the other day, the thing I love the best about when he put it out there, hey, does anybody have jobs? He goes, I want to learn things. So if you know how to do something, teach me how to do that. That's having no ego. There's no job beneath you if you're looking to make some money, okay? There's not much I won't do. I don't like to get filthy. I'm not crawling in anybody's, under anybody's house and cleaning it out. I'm not doing that. That is not my thing. But there are plenty of people out there that do those things, and that's great. That's somebody Nick does that. I'm going to employ that person because I'm not doing that, okay? You need to find people like that. Some people don't mind. They're perfectly fine doing that. I don't mind changing brakes in a car. It's the only thing I know how to do on a car, but I can do that. So when somebody needs that, I always offer, hey, you need your brakes done, I'll do it for parts in the case of beer or something, something small. I don't care. Throw me $20. Doesn't matter to me. So the next thing we really want to focus in on when it comes to dealing with this pandemic is you need to prioritize your bills. And we're going to get in depth in this later, but I really want to bring it up now because the most important bills you have are food, shelter, utilities, and transportation. You have to have food, you have to have shelter. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Utilities, we're going to discuss later what utilities are, because a lot of people are going to tell you it's gas and electric and that's it. I'm not sure we live in that world anymore. And transportation really depends on where you are. If you live, in Chicago, transportation might be taking the L every day, might be hopping on the bus. If you live in Byron Center, Michigan, or Jenison, Michigan, or Portage, Michigan, it might be having a car. If you're like me and you work from home, it might not be having a car. I work from home. Maybe I don't need this car. So you really need to look at those things. And like I said, we'll get more into depth on that one later. When I was doing research for the show, one of the things I saw was start a financial diary, just like you would a food diary if you were, watching what you eat or counting calories or anything like that. Write down everything you're doing financially. That way you can see it. It can help motivate you. Because let's face it, we're all motivated by seeing things. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, that's the biggest key. When you talk about goals, right, they always say that to reach a goal, you write it down because you're more likely to hit it. So when we're talking about making a financial diary, right, what we want you to do is, if you go to the store and you're getting your essential things, I'm talking to people who, their income is lower and things like that, but, write down, hey, I spent $50 on bread, eggs, milk, cheese, all that. Write it down, in a little notebook, or you have a lined piece of paper or anything like that, and write down. So, because there's going to be that time where you realize that, hey, you bought a candy bar, or you bought a pop, you bought a beer, and you don't realize how often those small things add up. Before this we were talking, I just started drinking pop again, and I don't know why. But I know that every time I go, it's $2, $4 or whatever it is. I'm buying drinks, and that money adds up. So write it down so you can figure out what you can cut out, where you can cut it, and keep the journal, because if you see it, you're more likely to act upon it.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with that, because I know when we've looked at our spending, if I bring up to my wife, hey, you went to Speedway 3 times last week for coffee. Can we just buy coffee at home and we make coffee at home? She'll go, oh yeah, that sounds like a better idea, because I'm spending $2 each time I go to Speedway. I can get a thing of coffee for less than $6. It's going to last her more than 3 times.
And we're not picking on people. I know my wife likes coffee, right? If she wants Big B or something, that's fine, right? Every day is just, during these times, right? Every day is not a thing. But we'll try to get the buy one get one coupons or something, right? That saves a little bit of money there. And if it's something that makes you feel like a person, right? Like if that thing right there makes you feel like the person you want to be, right? I drink an energy drink every day. It's horrible for me. It's just something I do. It's a habit. It's something I'm going to intend to break. But I'm not saying you have to cut that, but writing these things down, you're going to find something that you didn't need, that you don't even normally like all the time. And you're going to be able to cut those types of things, right? So we're not telling you to cut the world out. We're not, we're just trying to get you to see where your money's going and if there's a better option that you can do. I joke with my wife about buying one of those fancy coffee makers that the baristas have, and she's like, oh, they're however much. And I'm like, we can find one used, right? But so it's just a matter of can we limit it? Can we take that and have a different option for it? So.
Well, I know, like, I don't want to get too much into wants and needs right now, but I don't want to forget this thought I'm having. Mike and I were talking about streaming services the other day, because he had CBS and decided, I don't think I watch enough stuff on the CBS streaming app. I'm just going to get rid of that. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, well, I'm using this right now, and I could add an account for you to do this. I'm not going to say what service, because I'm sure they wouldn't like that. But I said I can add an account for you, because we're basically family, and you can use my account. And he goes, hey, that's great. If you don't mind doing that, that'd be awesome. So I did that. And now, you know, he doesn't have to have CBS anymore. So he saves $6-7 a month or whatever it is. And he's just,
Yeah.
you know, piggybacking off of what I already have, which, you know, let's face it, if he didn't have that option, he still wouldn't have CBS because he was getting rid of it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's sitting there going, well, they're losing, you know, $30 a month for me because I'm piggybacking off of David's account. He's going, I just wouldn't have this, and now I'm going to, you know, use it a little bit because let's face it, how much are we using any of these streaming services? You know, I might spend an hour on Netflix a week.
Mm-hmm.
I might spend an hour or two on Disney Plus a week. It's not a ton of time. I know, you know, and some of it you have to look at. Like Mike has Verizon. He gets Disney Plus for free for a year, don't you?
I do.
And
my kids are utilizing that to no end.
And that's a fantastic thing. If you can piggyback things like that, that's going to save you money down the road.
And not only is it free for a year, it's discounted after that year.
Which is fantastic.
And yes, you know.
And go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, like I said, I do that. I mean, like I said, for me, what I've found is a big thing, and again, it'll go kind of with the utilities and stuff. Yeah, I'm spending a lot less transportation-wise because I'm not driving into work. But some of my utilities are going up because I'm using a lot more electricity, and I'm using, you know, I have to turn on the heat that I would normally have on during the day on, and, you know, or when the air conditioning starts having to be hit, I'll have to turn that on at times I normally wouldn't run it.
Well, let's say, you know, and I'm you know, more of a minimalist than you guys, you know, because we've talked about, I'm still running this. You guys will see me glitch and do all that because I'm running it off my phone. You know, I put it as a hotspot and put it onto my laptop. You know, my wife and I, we had internet for a little bit. She was in school finishing her degree. And then the price just kind of kept going up. And so, you know, we made the choice to cut everything again. And, you know, we don't regret it, right? My daughter's 4 and she loves PBS and it's free and it's great. You know, so we've cut, you know, we're the water, gas, and electric type of a people, you know, but I know I have a pool that my daughter is going to utilize and already has, ice cold. So, but you know, the electric bill on that thing to run that goes up like crazy. Yeah, so they're laughing. So we filled our pool in Michigan here, you know, and on one day it's 38 degrees, you know, today's 55, tomorrow's supposed to be 70, and then 88, you know, in a couple of days. So 88, you know, it's just the temperatures are going up and down. But so we filled it with ice cold water. My daughter was so excited to jump in. So we kept telling her how cold it was, and she was, you know, gung ho to get in there. So she jumped right in and cried her way right back out. So, you know, but I know that the cost of you know, I just filled my pool. That cost me, my water bill is going to be, you know, $300 or $200, whatever it is, you know, more than what I used to pay. Actually, it was so bad the city called me and said, hey, you have a water usage for these past 3 days that is, you know, bigger than you normally have. You have a water leak. And it was just that we're filling our pool, and we've never done it this early in the year. So, you know, you guys say, if you've ever thought about cutting your cable bill or anything like that, you know, now might be the time to look at doing that. You know, if you have, you know, there's so many, you guys have talked about some streaming services, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, you know, you might have an Amazon, you know, so you might have four services. Do you watch them all? You know, is there one that you just don't like and you're never getting anything off of it? You know, maybe discontinue it until that one show kind of comes back on. You know, so it's the way we look at these things is we want to get rid of things that can always come back, but right now would be helpful not to have, or we just don't use it. So, you know, cut out, you know, if you're staying at home, like I know David, honestly, like if he got into a bad spot, he said he lives in Byron Center. He needs a car, usually to get back and forth to work, but he works from home right now. So if he didn't have a car, you know, if he didn't have a car payment, he could, you know, I know he lives 2 blocks from a grocery store, right? He could walk to the grocery store, walk his stuff back home, so he could cut one insurance off of his car,
Mhm.
I know I have a couple of vehicles, I have a car and a truck. I have my car for the better gas mileage because I travel to work, 30 miles, each way or whatever it is. And so, I could technically get rid of my car or my truck and just drive the other one, but with the odd jobs, I'm finding I'm using both. So, you could cut your car insurance. You could cut, payments on random things. So just kind of take a look at what things you have that you're not using. And say bicycles are a great thing right now.
Well, I think that really rolls us into the next thing that we really want to focus in on everybody creating is you need an emergency fund. You have to have an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses, that at least gives you some kind of a basis for, hey, things went wrong, I lost my job, whatever, this is something that will get me through. I know I've never been fired from a real job. I don't think Mike ever has. Nick?
Yeah, I've been fired from a job.
See, and I've been fired from a secondary job, which, really paid me nothing, but was something I enjoyed doing. And when that happened, I had to say, okay, well, I'm losing $5,800 a year. Where's that extra money going to come from? So, of course, I found different ways to make up money I was losing. So you get that 3 to 6 months of emergency, and that can help you if something goes wrong, like the coronavirus scare or losing your job, or God forbid somebody has a heart attack and goes in the hospital. I got a phone call from a friend yesterday. He said, hey, I need you to know for me, I had a heart attack. I'm in the hospital. I'm going to be here a couple days. I'm okay. But I just wanted you to know for me. I'm like, okay, well, if you need something, please let me know. Luckily, he, lives on his own by himself, doesn't have a whole lot to worry about. So, he's not letting down a wife or kids or anything like that by being sick. But I know for him, any day he doesn't go to work, he doesn't make money. Well, he's not going to work. He's in the hospital. So if you have,
and it was,
go ahead.
This was something I learned pretty early, and most people don't, I guess, know. So we talked about, I got fired. I bought my first house when I was 20, 21, something like that. And 2 weeks after I bought the house, I lost my job. So the only thing I guess I had going for me was the economy was starting to kind of get back and jobs were easier to find. But, I didn't have a reserve because I just put all my money into a down payment on a house. But we bought a very inexpensive house for a reason because, back when the economy was bad, I had kind of gone through jobs and been unemployed here and there. So parts of me always said, hey, make it so you can get through unemployment, for a couple of weeks and do that. I didn't have the safety net, so I took another job that was absolutely horrible. Because it forced me, right? I didn't have a safety net to go look for a job that I would probably grow in a career and do better, right? So when you have the safety net, it gives you possibilities to make better decisions, right? Things that you're not forced into doing, So yeah, I got fired from there, had to instantly try to find work, and basically took the first opportunity that I could. And it was a backbreaking job, right? I went to lift diesel parts all day, and I have a couple crushed or pinched nerves in my lower back because of the heavy lifting and things like that. But then I got to build up a little bit of safety and said, hey, I want to better myself. So I found another job, and the company I'm still employed with right now. I mean, I'm on the break, I guess, but I've been there 8-9 years now, and having a good job in building up money. I personally am I'm a six times, six times my for reserve, for all my real estate money. I try to save up, and so right now being here, I can relax and figure out what my steps are, and I can take a look at my life compared to having to just run out and grab something quickly. And I love the option, right? I love not having to, I can, you always get asked, what do you want to do when you get older? And, what do you want to do later in life? And right now I feel like I have a little bit more choice in that for now. So, the money's not going to be there forever. So really it's just it's a comfort thing to make it so you don't have to make the wrong decisions, or go backwards in life, I guess, if you can.
Well, I think that really leads us into the next thing is creating a crisis budget. So we talked about this a couple weeks ago with budgeting for the pandemic. You really need to sit down and say, okay, this is what my budget's going to look like for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. This is, bare minimum what I have to have. And it's a fluid thing. It can change daily. So I shared my budget a few weeks ago. I looked at it again today. So in the last year, my electric has gone down, which I've worked from home for a long time. So I've always had that electric usage that was different than normal people. Now it's gone down, but the last couple months with my wife being home all the time, it's probably gone up a little bit. Not significantly enough for me to care. So I averaged the last 12 months of electric, the last 12 months of gas. And then the other thing that is very variable on my budget is vet and pet food. So last June, our geriatric 18-year-old passed away, and she was on a specialized diet because she had inflammatory bowel disease. So every cat food can cost me $2, which she ate maybe half of. And we supplemented with ham baby food, which was, it was Gerber ham baby food. It's $1 a jar, which she ate the hell out of. So I budgeted $480 a month every month for vet bills and pet supplies. I can cut that down to $280 now because we're not spending as much anymore. And that still includes a pretty hefty bill of hers in the last 12 months. So when I look at my crisis budget, saving probably $60, $70 in electric, I'm probably saving $30 in gas, I'm saving $160 in vet bills. That's all money that can funnel back into how much I actually need to survive for these next several months, because let's face it, it's not going away tomorrow. We're going to have to be, diligent at least through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And if it ends sooner, I have extra money.
Yeah, and that's the biggest key. Live right now. Live right now on your minimal mindset. And keep that budget. If you're making more than that, right, set aside for just in case there's a round two, just in case this happens again, something, right? It's proven that we can't predict the future. We don't know what the future is going to look like, 4 months from now, 18 months from now. If things go back to normal, great. At least you have something built up. If things get worse and, we don't get, let's call it more bailouts, and we don't get things, right? Help yourself. Help by going down to knowing what you need to live off of, and setting that, and then having yourself a budget, for the just in case things that happen, right? You could pull out of your driveway and have an accident with your car that you're going to have to fix. You can't predict what's going to happen, so make sure you have some kind of money put away for that type of a thing.
Well, because we're all looking at a new normal now, most people have to learn how to work from home, because many of us have been sent home. Now, I've said it many times, I've worked from home since 2011. Mike worked from home, usually 1 day a week, maybe?
Usually I was working about 1 day a week. Now I'm at about 3 days a week.
Yeah, and of course, because we're in our new normal now, our kids aren't in school anymore. Now, my daughter's 25. She's still taking college courses because she goes to online school, so she can. But I know next daughter's 4. She hasn't started school yet. She's home every day. Mike's 2 kids, they share custody, so he's got them, during his work days sometimes, which I think he said on the last episode, or maybe it was on a different Zoom meeting because we're on so many of these together, that, his son likes to talk and talk and talk, and they always want to know when lunch is and
how many meetings I have that day. And
yeah.
These are things you have to deal with as a parent now because we expect school will start back up in August or September, but we don't know that. Yeah. And if it doesn't, what is the new normal going to look like? And at the same time, what's daycare looking like this summer? We don't know. There might not be daycare still. Yeah. You might not want your kids going around these other kids.
No.
We're, as much as I keep talking about getting internet so that this doesn't freeze up on me as much and do all that, my wife and I are already talking about budgeting for internet just in case my daughter, has to go to online school. I mean, I've never dealt with it. I didn't go to online. I went to a classroom and learned from a teacher, but I have some neighbors, and to finish up their school year, some of these people went to online school, like through a Zoom meeting, and there's a possibility. So, I'm already budgeting that money to make sure I have let's call it a $50 a month internet bill. If it's a need, I will always get the need. Library, we live near a library, but it's not open, right? I can't guarantee that it's going to open. I can't guarantee they're going to give me the free internet, to go use it. Or, I think you're limited to an hour at the library of internet usage. So, we're talking about options. Do we get her a tablet that has unlimited internet like what we have? So she can do this type of a thing. My 4-year-old could have her own phone or a tablet. We don't know what this future is going to look like, but we're trying to plan for the worst and hope for the best. When it comes to busing, we're talking about that right now. They offer some type of busing, but my wife works a little later, and I get out early. As of right now, I have a job, so I get out early. I can pick her up, but we're trying to figure out: are we going to use the public transportation? Are we going to use our own transportation? Are they going to allow kids to get on the bus? We might have to be forced to bring our kids in quarantine so they're not together all the time. Honestly, I'm not sure what this is going to look like. It's funny. I brought up to my wife. I said, what if they take classes and they start offering morning sessions so that way they can use every other classroom, and then an evening session so they can use every other classroom. Yep. Or, have 30, instead of 30 kids in one classroom, they'll put 15, but have the desk spaced out so far. Yep. And just hire the double amount of teachers. I mean, my taxes are going to have to go up. I'm going to have to pay for those teachers somehow. I don't know the answer. I don't have the answer, but I'm planning for whatever answer they throw at me. So.
When I think at a point, Nick, you brought up something that I was thinking about in terms of, we talked about kind of what would be the essential needs. And I think right now, everybody's moved away from a home phone. Cell phones are almost an essential. And I'll do one thing that I do from a cell phone perspective. Unless I can get a free one, I don't upgrade my phone unless I can pay for it out of pocket at that exact moment. I'm not going to be one of those who's going to add $50 to my monthly bill over the next 24 months to, do that. I pay for it out of pocket, or I get a free phone.
Sure. I can't say I do that. Honestly, so it would cost me $800 to get my phone, or they offered it if I took a $5 a month payment for, 16 or 18 months or something like that. So, it didn't cost me, it actually saved me money to make a payment than it did to pay it up front. That's the only reason. And I didn't go get my brother's one of those that, he'll pay, get $35 or $40 extra on his just to have a nice phone. And no, I don't care what the phone is. It does the job. It does the job. It has the stuff I need, and so I pay $5. They my company, I guess, stopped giving free phones as much as I kept taking them. So, but we make the best budgeting decision based off of it. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would be the same way. If I could get a decent phone for like $5 a month versus paying $800 for it, I would do the same thing. I just know that usually, at least again with Verizon, unless you hit it at just the right time, you're usually paying for that phone, or you're paying more for that phone because you're paying for it over, 2 years or whatever.
24 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things we try to do is I got an SA Plus 6 months after it came out. That was November-ish of, what is this, 20? So 17, I want to say. Still rocking the same phone, and I'm going to rock it until it doesn't work anymore. Because I don't need bigger and better.
The only reason I upgrade is, if I run out of storage on my phone, or the phone breaks, and it last time my phone broke, I think it was going to cost me $120 for a screen, and the phone was so old. Or they offered me the $5 for the, I have the LG, I had a G6, now I have a G8 or something, or, and it came with, more storage space, more everything, and so I don't have to go in and delete photos every 2 seconds. I just let it ride, and really, I only do it when I need to. Once in a while I break my phone. My wife breaks her phone, every month. This is a true story. So we got the G8s, and she ordered cases, and as she got done sending to order the case, she ordered them on Amazon, went to put her phone in her pocket, and didn't hit her pocket, and it dropped in the ground, and it broke right there. I was dying laughing. So, she broke the screen for a while. It still worked, but now Sprint has like $30. $30, and you could fix any phone, I guess.
Well, I mean, they're doing a lot of companies are doing a lot of that stuff now because they realize people can't afford to buy a brand new iPhone 10 or whatever, so of course they're going to give you things to, refurbish them cheap or fix them cheap or whatever, because, they don't want you jumping ship to a provider that'll do that for you.
Yeah, and that's a sales tactic they're all using, right? I mean, switch to us and we'll give you these brand new, biggest high-end free phone. And so people are, switching back and forth constantly. So yeah, they're doing their best.
So we took a little short break there for some of you, and what we're going to do now is we're going to share those numbers once again, because we feel that's important for everybody to see. So we're going to do that a few times. So this is the second time. We have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We have the Crisis Counseling text line, if you would rather text instead of talking to somebody. And then we have the Veterans Crisis line for those of you that are veterans out there that either want to talk to somebody or text somebody. Please do not hesitate to do those things. I mentioned many times before, I've been a coach for many, many years. Luckily, I've never had anybody I coach commit suicide, but I've had a few that were close. I had some kids that I coached knew that did commit suicide. We had one this year that kids of mine were close to that committed suicide. It's tough. Please reach out to somebody, anybody. I'm here, Nick's here, Mike's here. I know that, when I've been in bad places, I will text them or other friends of mine and say, I'm in a bad spot, I need to talk. People are there for you, they care about you, they don't want you to do anything, rash. Anything to add, either one of you?
Yeah. And we've all been there, right? I'm always okay with not having sleep. I'm always okay with being interrupted. and anything I'm doing in life, right? Like to help save a life, to help get somebody through life. You know, I know David and I both have, you know, and to us, right? Life is too short already, you know, so the impacts that we can make on other people's lives is huge. So, you know, reach out to anybody for help. You know, these are just some things. If you don't want to reach out to, you know, if you have a normal friend or family, or you lost that friend or family for some reason, you know, reach out to somebody, seek, you know, get the help that you need. And, you know, really, guys, we're all going to get through this together. We're all going to get through life together. Let's make it a great life to get through.
So getting back to what we were talking about, we have a few other things that we want to definitely hit. So we were talking earlier about wants versus needs. So Mike kind of hit on this on the head before we took our little short break here that you don't even know we took. Home phones are kind of a thing of the past. Some people I still have a home phone because it's a speaker phone and I don't want to deal with talking through the computer all the time. So I keep that mostly for work purposes, or, you know, when my mother calls, I can just stick it on speaker and continue to do whatever I'm doing. But for the most part, a cell phone has become a need, not a want. Needs are shelter, clothing, food, utilities. Could be medications, depending on the medications. I know Mike's got some different medications he's on. I have medications I'm on. Sometimes you need those things. My wife used to be on 18, 19 different meds. She has lupus, fibromyalgia, IC, MS. She's not on any of those anymore because she discovered medical cannabis. So now she, you know, eats gummies. No more pills. And that's great. If that's something that works for you, I know that I hate the smell and taste of pot. I will not do any of that stuff. It's disgusting to me. She doesn't taste it, so she's perfectly happy to have a gummy, and it takes away any of the pain she has, and she doesn't have any issues. And most of the time with her, she doesn't even have THC in whatever she's taking. So again, those needs: medications, food, shelter, clothing, utilities. I think cell phones fall under utilities. Wouldn't you both agree?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, little cell phone, yes, right? Like if my daughter doesn't have one, but she doesn't need one, right? So there's people out there with, you know, kids that have cell phones, and right now kids aren't going anywhere. Kids don't need them. I can't tell you how to raise your kid, but I'm saying there's mine. I do everything. I pay my mortgages. I run my spreadsheets. You know, normally before I learned how to hotspot, I would run my Zoom off of that thing. So yeah, my cell phone, and it is a need. It's a business expense. I get it as a write-off. It's a need. Anything I can write off, that's a need.
Well, I think that runs into internet as well nowadays.
In general,
go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think it boils down to, in general, a mean of communication is a need, but how fancy of a phone do you want is a want. Because, I mean, you can get away with, you know, the bottom of the barrel smartphone and still get, you know, what Nick does and be able to use it as a mobile hotspot and things like that.
Yeah, it definitely is something that you really need to review. Do you need the newest iPhone? Do you need the newest Samsung? Or can you get away with something cheaper? What were we going to say, Nick?
Yep. You know, no, so, you know, and that's, you know, we all need food, right? We all need shelter, right? So, you know, I'm not suggesting that you go out and, you know, if you rent right now, go rent, you know, if you rent right now, continue your lease and pay your bill, right? Make sure you have that over your head. If you own your house, right? If your job changed, you might go to a lower income, right? Take a look at that and see, do I need this much house for what I have, right? Um, there could be a chance to downsize and, or a chance to upgrade. We can't tell you, but figure out what your needs are. I don't need a house with a pool. My wife wants it. That's the only reason we have it.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier,
too, is
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm having some internet trouble, but go ahead.
Okay, so while Mike's trying to figure out why his internet's being stupid, as I was saying earlier, I think internet's become more of a need than a want. Like Nick said, he doesn't need internet right now. He's got a 4-year-old. But come school, if they're not back in school, he's probably going to need internet. He needs to figure out how to budget that $50 a month so that he has it. With those of us that work from home, if you don't have internet, you cannot work from home. So I've gotten a stipend on my internet ever since I started working from home full time. That's an awesome thing my company offers. So I take that every month. I put it towards my internet bill. That's fantastic. Mike's working from home more now, so he has internet. He has to have it. Otherwise, he can't work from home.
Mm-hmm.
If Nick or his wife could do their job from home, he would, obviously have internet right now, but really hard to do their jobs from home. One being, in the healthcare field, direct patient care, and the other one, working at Gentex.
Yeah.
It'd be really hard to do those jobs from home.
I'm trying to figure out how to load a semi from home. I really am. I say, parts of me is begging to get back to that type of routine. But I say I want to talk about transportation as wants versus needs, right? If I take a deep look into myself, right? We talked about it. I have a car. My wife has a car. I have a truck, and I have a motorcycle. I don't need all of those. That motorcycle took me forever to buy again. My 5th one. Crashed a couple other ones, but I can get rid of that motorcycle. I don't need it. It's a want. But I've budgeted enough money to make it happen. If I had to choose, right, I'd choose my truck over my car because I'm finding I need that to get jobs done. I don't need 2 vehicles to do that. And yes, I do need 2 cars because my wife are both still working. But if one of us is working from home, I might be able to bring her to work and do all that. I know plenty of people that only have 1 vehicle and the other one, works from home and they get around. They either bring a sponsor or Uber, right? Uber is an option. So there's a lot of wants that we all don't actually need. So when you're in crisis mode, when you're in a thing that you don't know what the future looks like, take a look at what your wants really are and what your needs are. Every bit adds up. We're finding that we've always loved Aldi, but I don't need name brand tortilla chips. I go to Aldi and pay $1 compared to paying $3. So, shop for less expensive, I guess. You need to eat, but you don't need to eat filet every night. If you can afford filet, awesome, good for you. I'm proud of you. Right? You've worked hard to get that money, but we're talking to the people that their life has been impacted right now, and their life is going to be impacted later. So take care of eating food. Try to stay as healthy as possible. I know we could all work on that better. But if your lease is almost up, maybe take a look at getting something a little less expensive, downgrading areas, downgrading size, anything like that. Really take a look at what you actually need for your life to live.
Well, and one of the things you can do is look at some of those non-essential services you have. Do you really need 4 or 5 streaming services if it's hard to make your budget right now? So I know I have Hulu right now. I don't watch Hulu a whole lot, but I always play the Hulu game every November. They'll come out with something. 2 years ago, it was sign up for Hulu and you get it for 99 cents a month for 12 months. So I canceled my Hulu subscription and I signed my wife up. So I had Hulu for $1 a month for 12 months. This last November, they ran a promotion where, hey, new subscriber to Hulu, $1.99 a month for 12 months. So I canceled my wife's Hulu because it was going to go up to $6 a month, and I signed my daughter up for Hulu. So now I'm paying $2 a month. $2 a month, that's $24 a year. I take 3, 4, 5 surveys, that covers that. That's not, to me, that's not non-essential. It is, but it's not saving me anything. Whereas when I looked at some of the other stuff I had, there were services I had that I wasn't using a lot. I could cut, and I did that because right now, saving money was a little more important than paying $10 a month for WWE Network or $17 a month for GameFly or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, let's say, you know, and, you know, we go back to, you know, if it's something that makes you the most happy you've been, right? I mean, if your life lives around Netflix and you need it, we're not saying cancel that. You know, we're saying budget for it. And if your budget doesn't call for it, you have 2 choices, right? You can either, I mean, you can either cancel it and be unhappy, or you can go make more money to make sure that you can afford that service. You know, again, if it's mowing your neighbor's grass, you know, once every 2 weeks or whatever it is for $20 a shot, you paid for that service so you can do what you need, right? So, you know, we want to keep people happy. We just want to do it financially smart.
And that's a fantastic point. And one of the things I was talking about with my wife earlier was she heard somebody say, hey, if you have debt, stop paying that off in full if you're in a financial crunch right now. So I wanted to hit that real quick. So let's say you have credit cards or some other kind of loan. Credit cards are a perfect thing because that payment changes every month, unlike what a loan does, which is a fixed rate or a fixed payment every month. So if you're in a position where you've lost 50% of your income, first off, stop using your cards if you can. Second off, you don't have to pay the full balance. You can sit there and write out payments. It sucks. You have to pay interest to do it, which for most credit cards are somewhere between 18 and 30%. I never recommend that, but if you're in the tightest situation, that might be something you have to do for a month or two. And again, going back to go ahead, Nick.
Let's say we talked about, you know, the couple other options, you know, on the past couple episodes about, you know, over credit cards, but, you know, like myself, you know, I was always about overpaying on my mortgages, especially my personal, you know, but now during crisis mode, right? It's, hey, if my bill is $742, you know, I'm not going to $750 right now. I'm going to $742 and taking that $8 and making sure it goes towards the next bill. You know, making sure I can do everything I can to pay all the bills that I have. You know, there's it's not always a bad thing to pay your minimum, right? As long as it doesn't cost you so much in the end. You know, find the ways to just pay what you need to pay to get by.
Yeah, again, we're talking about ways to figure out different things. So just to diverge for a minute here, my wife went into the grocery store the other day to pick up some stuff, and As she walked in, there was this young girl putting her hand in those coin machines. You know, the coin machines where you stick in your coins and it gives you a gift card or whatever. So she stuck her hand in there to pull out any loose change that was in there, and she came up with a Canadian nickel because they don't take Canadian money. Now, for those of you that live in, let's say, California or Texas or, you know, someplace not near the Canadian border, in Michigan, Canadian money is like United States money. If it's a Canadian penny, we spend it. The grocery store takes it, the bank takes it, they give you a penny for it. It's the same money for us if it's change. That doesn't happen in other places. I remember going to Hawaii when I was a kid. My mom, you know, sat down a Canadian nickel and they said, we don't take that money. And we didn't understand what they were talking about because you spend it in Michigan. So she looked at my wife because my wife looked at her when she walked in and she goes, it doesn't take Canadian coins. So I always stick my hand in the coin machine because, you know, there might be money in there and I get a lot of money that way. Somebody else left it. And she goes, I swear you're related to my husband. And she just kind of walked away because that's something I would do. I've never thought of doing that, but I would do that. So again, different ways to make some extra cash.
We're still going to start doing that.
It's a great idea, isn't it? Like we said, please share your ideas with us because this is something I never thought of, but I will do it for the rest of my life now. Next thing we want to hit on here.
Back in the days of phone booths, I would always do that at phone booths.
Right. Because there was always money in those. Mind you, anybody watching this right now is going, what is a phone booth?
I know what a phone booth is. That's what I wanted to say. I know what it is, but I want to know what's a phone booth. Yeah, they're called museums.
Correct. So the last couple things we want to hit here is if you've had a loss of income through this and the debt payment kind of falls into that, you contact your creditors immediately. Say, hey, this is what's going on. What can you do to help me? They'd rather have money from you than you filing bankruptcy or you defaulting on payments and they have to go through collections because they're losing money that way. So their best bet is to work with you, especially right now. Call them, see what they can do. Adjust your lifestyle. Figure out how to live on less. Get rid of non-essential stuff. You know, we've gone over all of that. And look for relief programs. There's a lot of relief programs out there right now. Go out to Google and type in COVID-19 relief program. You're going to find different grants or different programs, something that will hopefully help you save some money. You know, hopefully we've, over the last 7 of these that we've done, have found ways to save you some money or make you extra money. Because that's our goal at the end of the day, is to help people survive another day with a couple more bucks in their pocket than they had the day before. Nick?
Yeah, and I say that's the biggest key is you know, if you continue to grow wealth, eventually it'll stack to be a pile, right? I mean, you ever you say, you know, when you build with blocks, you know, it only grows up, right? So if you stack pennies every day, it'll get bigger, and eventually it'll be to the ceiling. So, you know, our goal is definitely to try to get everybody here to get through on just a little bit better than they were the day before.
Mike, anything else to add?
Not much really. I can tell you one thing that like I did recently, and it kind of came with some of the stuff we talked about, is that in all this time when I started working from home, like my credit union called me. They, you know, gave me a bunch of offers to like do, you know, move a couple of loans from one bank to their bank, and they basically said, you know, we'll give you, you know, lose your job, we'll give you, you know, 2 or 3 months, grace period. You just contact us, tell us, you lost your job, and you'd be surprised how many, credit cards and loan companies out there will give you that grace period if they realize that, you've reached a hardship and stuff like that.
Well, I can honestly say the last time we went through this was, the recession in 2008, 2009. Banks were less willing to work with people. I've found that banks are really willing to work with people right now. They understand the situation we're in. They're more willing to help. Those are things to tap into. If you need help, call them. You're not going to, the worst they can do is say, no, we're not going to help you. So I know
I think what happened is they learned from 2008, 2009.
Go ahead, Mike. They learned from 2009.
In the ass really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, they really did. Banks were in a bad way, and honestly, the government should have let them fail. And they didn't, which, shame on us. But unfortunately, that's kind of the situation we're in. Again, go ahead, Nick.
That's what I'm gonna say. We talked in the beginning, right? About facts, and the facts is that the government can't afford to do the exact same bailout. Every time something like this happens. So, right, banks have to start giving some grace, right? I mean, we see it all the time. I know I have friends in real estate where their lending companies came out and said, hey, your loan is in forbearance for 6 months. They're not even allowed to make payments, and so it's don't have too much pride to ask for help. That's the biggest advice I can give you. Is there's so much help out there.
And piggybacking off that help, we're going to show this one more time, because we want everybody to know that this help is out there. So here are those numbers once again. If you have issues, please reach out. We don't want to see anybody, do anything unfortunate that they can't come back from. And this is the time to hopefully pull together instead of pushing apart like we've been doing for the last several years. So.
Say, and again, as we've mentioned, right? David and I and Mike are there, right? If you guys leave a comment on Facebook, leave a comment on YouTube, we'll find, we can get you in touch with us in some way to help in any way that we can, get you through the couple days or however long it is. We have connections, and through our experiences in life, right? We've all had people, get to a low point. So just remember, there's always somebody that can help you.
Yeah, so we're going to leave you with, we hope you enjoyed what we had to talk about tonight. It's not a thrilling topic like what we talked about last week. It's kind of a bummer, but hopefully it's useful information. Give us a like, give us a share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, get the information out there. And if you have stuff to share with us, please do so. If you want to hop in on these calls, let us know, because we're more than happy to have anybody that wants to join in and throw in their 2 cents, throughout the entire talk that we give. So that's about all I have. Nick, did you have anything left to throw?
You guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. We're looking forward to more episodes. Really, the more you guys can help us out, as David said, like, subscribe, share, get it out there so we can help as many people as possible. Really, if you are an expert in a field of some type of finances, we are always willing to listen and have you guys on to share your knowledge. I mean, we are the first to to say that we don't know everything, but we're willing to learn. So have a great night, and we'll see you guys in about a week.
All right, sounds great. We'll see you three later.